The Life of Alexander the Great, Book 3. Continuing, ut viro. But as this medication diffused itself in his veins and sent him little bit by bit, what have we got? I think there's a typo there. The salubritas, the health-givingness of it, was able to be perceived in the ablative, in the whole body. At first, in the first place, the animus, the mind, got its vigor, vigorem suum, then the body also recuperated, more maturius, comparative than expected, expectation. Quippy, since after the third day, which he had been in hoc statu, in this state, into the conspectum of his soldiers, into the sight of his soldiers, he vented, he came out. Nec avidus. Neither was the army more avid in turbating, looking over the king himself, than of Philip, the physician. Quisque, each one, pro se, for himself, was having thanks, habebating grates, and they were implecting the physician's dextram, his right hand. They embraced his hand or grabbed it as if presente Dio, as if God was present. Or maybe he was a god. Namque hord. For it is not easily, facile, in a word, or easily to say, other than the ingenitam, that's inborn, or natural veneration, that goes with that. This race, illigenti, had towards reges suis, towards the kings. And how much? Utique usually means certainly, by all means, or at any rate. We have vele, how much they gave in admiration. What do they have? They gave and they had to him. They were burning with, again, charity, the word for love. So we'll take these vowels as ors. So especially or certainly to this king, they gave admiration and they had it for him. They were burning with love for him. Iam primum. And now, first off, nothing without divine help he seemed to agree to attack or undertake. For when presto, when something was at hand, fortune looks like, when fortune was at hand and everywhere, ubique, his temeritas, his rashness, cesarated, yielded into glory or gave him glory. Aetas quoque, his age also, vix matura, scarcely mature for such rebuses, for such matters. Age is female, going with that. But it was sufficiently abundant and honestabat, so it gave him credit and honours and earned for him in all of his works, omnia operae. And the things which, et quae, are accustomed to be considered more lighter or trivial, plurimaque, the adverb. Generally, these are more gratoria. These are more gratifying or pleasing to the vulgo militari, to common soldiers. Exercising of his body into ipsos, he'd exercise with them. His cultus and his habitus, so his clothing and his bearing. Sometimes they can both mean clothing, but I'd say it's bearing here. Paulum, only abhorring a little bit from what a private citizen should be doing. Abhorrent in English seems stronger, so he's just differing a little bit in clothing. He had the vigor militaris. He had military vigor, you might want to say, about him. Quizili, that'd be Alexander. Him who either by his inborn gifts or by the arts of his mind, they were effecerated, they were brought about so that parata equally he was carus, he was dear and verendus and revered. Chapter VII 7. But Darius, having accepted or hearing the nuntio, the news concerning the adverse health of Alexander, with celerity, with speed, as much as he was able to take, there's Poderat, with so heavy an agmen, so heavily armed soldiers, and I guess they were carrying shields and other heavy things, he hurried to the Euphrates, and having joined this with bridges. He's bridged it with pontoons across the Euphrates. Nevertheless, in Quinque Diebus, in 5 days, he had trajected the river. He had crossed the river. His army had crossed or he crossed his army. Festinans hurrying to occupy or take, what do you call that? Silica, whatever you call it. Cilicia. Yamqui. And now Alexander, having ablative absolute, having recovered all the strength of his body, he reached, taking Ador in, the city Soli, of which Potitus he had obtained. We got with 200 talents, I guess there's silver, he had exacted in the name Multe, that's a word for a fine, not to be confused with many, and he imposed a military praesidium or garrison on the city, on the Archae, the stronghold. Malta, here it is. Penalty involving livestock even, and later as money. So this was way before Rome was a thriving city, so they've just taken it into the common Latin and used the word for fine, for money, 200 talents of silver, which he gave back 50, I believe. Okay, so having suscepted voter with his vow paid off, which he had taken up for his saluti. When he was sick, he must have vowed, made a vow if he lived, and he reddened. He paid off this vow that he had accepted, he had taken up, through games and through leisure time, and he showed how much fiducia, a confidence that he had when he spurned the barbaros, the barbarians. Quippy, since he was celebrating games to these datives, to Asclepius and Minerva, or you might want to say 4, he was doing this to show that he was paying off his vows. So these are 2 gods. I guess Asclepius is a god, Minerva is. A happy message, happy news maybe, was adverted to the dative present participle to him when he was watching. I guess he was watching these ludices, these games, from Halicarnassus. The Persian Achis, the Persian line, had been superatos, overcome by Halicarnassus's men. Mindios also, and Kenios, and the general tract of land had been made or came under his diction, under his power. So that is good news for Alexander. Icator, therefore, with the ludicrous spectacle, the games, the show of the games having been edited, been produced, and another ablative absolute, and his camp moved. We have a river here, the Pyramo River, whatever that is in English, having joined that or overcome that with a bridge. He joined a bridge to this river. And another prevented. He arrived to the city of Malum, whatever that is in English, Malus, I guess. And this river would be Pyramus River. Inde. Then, with another camp, on another day, they came to the town of Castabellum. There, Parmenio accorded the king. He met the king in the dative. That looks like it's the wrong tense. He didn't send, he was sent. He had been sent to explore the Ita Saltus, the mountain pass. This is the Saltuses, and so it'd be the path through the mountain, through which must be penetrated to get to the city by the name of Yison. What do they call that in English? Issus, I guess. At Quiili. And he, having occupied the Narrows, the Augustus, and having relicto left a modest garrison there, he had also caperated, he had also taken Yison, deserted by the barbarians. Indi progressus, then he progressed on, having disturbed those who were blocking up the interior of the mountain. He firmavited it with, conquered all of it with Praesidus, with garrisons, and he occupied a path, or he made free a path for his men, just as has been dictum just a little before. The same guy and the author came, so the author of this news, the same guy, he vented it. He's the guy who turned up with the news. Yison. So Yison then, then the king moved his copiers to this place, where, having made a bit of a plan of whether or not utrum ne, he would progrediendum, he would move up ultra further, or there, operende, where he should wait for new soldiers, which were agreed to adventure to arrive from Macedonia. At this point, Parmenion was sensibating. He was thinking that no other location is more apt for the battle. And here he's going to quote Quippy. Since the copiers, the forces of both kings, illic there, futurus would be equal, pares in number, equal number, the forces of both sides, where when the multitude could not take these narrows and the plains and these campuses, they're spread out like plains as well, these should be vitendos, should be avoided. Yes, on these plains and levels where they would be able to be surrounded, circumiried, and where the Achis, the battle would be two-headed, it'd be going either way, they were able to be opprimied, they were overwhelmed. It's like a historical infinitive. He feared that, not by the virtue of the enemy, virtue is the quality of being a vir, but by the looseness or the spread outness, they would be vinculated, they'd be beaten. The Persians, immediately after, Sabindi, they could success or take the place. Recent troops could successors to the ones who were worn out, if they were able to stand Laxius. Okay, that's it.